Hello everyone, it's bluefaecosplay, and I am frantically working on my Aloy cosplay for DragonCon this year, and this video is all about how I made my bracers or machine armor parts. So I started just by eyeballing and freehanding the base design of the pieces onto little craft foam sheets. You can get a big pack of these for super cheap at Walmart or Michael's or any kind of craft place. You could use a template and it would save you a lot of time. I like eyeballing and freehanding. It's just how I do things. So I put Worbla on top of these. So underneath, you want all of the layers to come through under the Worbla. So I just kind of eyeballed everything, cut out the layers, and attached them with contact cement. And because contact cement is super globby and messy, I used a teeny tiny brush for all of the little pieces. Now, there is a big list of all of the materials I used in the description box, but of course the main pieces were craft foam and Worbla. The right arm bracer definitely had a lot more layers and more details than the other pieces, so I spent a lot more time on this one than any other one. As you can see, there were lots of little pieces that that I put down and just kind of placed them and unplaced them and trimmed until it seemed right. And here are the finished base pieces of the foam before I put the Worbla on. And as you can see, I used a separate material for the silver parts, and you'll see that in a bit. So this is by no means a Worbla tutorial. I am not a Worbla expert. I've only used it a few times. But you definitely need a heat gun and a heat-resistant surface to work on. I just work on top of tin foil. And once the Worbla's heated up, I used just the end of a paintbrush to work in the details when it softens up, and also my hands. But you just want to be really careful because it can get quite hot. Now, I did use only one layer on top. Most of the time that I've used Worbla, I sandwich in between, but this time I only used the one layer because the fur was going to be under it, and it seemed pointless to cover it with both sides. So I did make sure I had a little bit of give on the edges when I trimmed it so that I could fold it over so it would look nice and neat. So if you know anything about working with Worbla, you know that you have to keep heating it up so that it's soft enough to work with, because it does harden as it cools. That's one good thing about it, is if you make a mistake, you can kind of go back in and fix things as you go along. Now, I'm usually a little bit more careful with my fingernails, but I knew as I was putting nail indentions in there, I decided to leave them to see how they looked. Because I knew I was going to want it to be like dinged up anyway and not perfectly smooth, so that it would actually look like used armor. And oddly enough, I actually liked the way my little nail indentions were looking in there. Now, I really gave some attention to the holes because I knew that if I made these things and I painted it and the holes were not big enough to fit the rope through, that I was going to be very, very upset. So I kind of used scissors and my fingers and, you know, the end of the paintbrush to get the holes as open as I thought they needed to be. And I really got in there with the end of the paintbrush and my fingers to really get the details and the layers to show through as cleanly as possible. Because I knew that after I primed it, some of that detail might soften up a little bit. So I tried to make it as crisp as I could. And now here, I'm just bending it to the shape that it needs to cool in. And the edge of the table ended up working nicely to get the line as straight as possible. And you want to let it cool all the way before while you're holding it in the position, because if it's still at least a little bit soft, it will move. And here is what the finished Worbla pieces look like. And they are ready for priming and then painting. So I did prime these with white Plastidip, and then I put just glossy white spray paint on top of that. Now with the knee piece, I kind of changed my mind partway through and took the primer off and then put the paint on top to see what it looked like. And I did not like the way that looked. I liked the way the primer looked under it. So I might redo the knee piece later and primed the right way. I did not feel like taking it off again, but for DragonCon, for this con, it'll be fine. Unfortunately, my camera died during the making of these next pieces, but it was pretty simple. I just used thin cardboard, just scrap cardboard. You could also use poster board, covered it with silver vinyl carbon fiber fabric with contact cement, and then I attached those pieces to the Worbla pieces underneath with E6000. And then I just did some detail painting, and as you can see on the silver pieces, I did add a couple more Worbla details just in smaller pieces and just attach those with E6000 glue. And the paint I'm using is just regular acrylic paint. It's nice to have a sponge brush handy as well to kind of clean up some details and make it look a little bit neater. Or wipe it off completely and try again. Now my favorite part is weathering. I just kind of totally eyeball this as I go along. I use a sponge brush with black acrylic paint, and I make some gray when I'm mixing some white in. And so I just kind of go in all the crevices, on all of the creases, the lines, just try to give it as much depth as possible. And you want to go in really, really light. You don't want to glob too much black on there, and then you're done for. And here we have the finished armor pieces. So on Aloy's left hand, she has kind of like a leather strap that goes around her wrist, and I measured my wrist, cut out a strip of foam, and then put some faux leather on top of that. Just covered it in faux leather with some hot glue. And then I used a snap to close it shut. You could use Velcro. Now I bought my little snap maker and a bunch of these colored snaps on Amazon for like 20 bucks, and it's like one of the best purchases I've ever made. I've used it a million times since I bought it. And done. Took about 3 minutes tops. So for the fur parts, I just used some white faux fur that I already had and colored in some gold Sharpie and then brushed through it to make it look a little bit more natural. I'm probably going to replace these fur parts with a nicer fur later on, but this is what I had. I just wanted to get it done at this point. And then to give it a little bit more of a natural effect, I just put a teeny bit of hot glue on the edge and folded it over. Now to poke the holes through, I just put the bracer on top of the fur, made sure it sat in the same place the whole time I was doing the hole so that it wouldn't shift and that everything would be in the right place. And I just used my little stabby thingy that came with my snap maker set and stuck the holes right through where their places were on the bracer. And then I just made the holes a little bit bigger using scissors. You don't want to make the holes too big because you don't want them to shift around as you're wearing it. But I did want the rope to actually fit through, so I made them just a teeny bit bigger. And then I just took some braided cotton cord and some Sapphire Blue Rit dye to dye the rope pieces. You could just use a blue yarn for this part, but I just really couldn't find any yarn that didn't look like yarn. And so I just eyeballed the cosplay guide, looked at where, tried to get it as close to the picture as possible, and then I used hot glue to kind of anchor the knots into place. And then I just strung the rope through the fur pieces, and I just tied them straight onto my wrists. So I probably am going to add some straps with some Velcro buckles or snaps so they'll stay on a little bit better during the con. And they're done. Yay! If any of you found this at all useful or helpful, please like and subscribe. I do have more videos coming. So thank you so much for watching.